Let me. I am currently live on Twitter, on Instagram, and via StreamYard on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So if you are watching me live, thank you so much. Hop on, say hello. I would love to see some comments and some hellos and tell me where you're coming in from. My name is Hadassah Vitar. I'm a life coach, I'm a well-being advocate, and I am here tonight to talk with you about holding the line on self-care. Ooh, look at that. So cool. StreamYard is fun. So, if you're watching this on the replay, on the other hand, drop me a comment with hashtag replay. And if you want to tell me when you saw the replay, that would be awesome too. I'm always curious to know how people find me. So let's talk about self care. And I really wanted to talk about something that I call scope creep. So I didn't invent this term, it's a project management term, scope creep. Uh, People who are managing software programs, projects. That's where I learned it. I'm sure it's in other projects as well. But basically, the idea is that when you have scope creep, you have a team and they've decided to work on something and they've all defined what they're going to do. And then somebody comes in and says, well, actually, can we also do this? Can we maybe add that? And the scope gets bigger, but not they don't necessarily also increase the resources. Like maybe you need more people, maybe you need more time. Um, but if that isn't taken into account, then people get very stressed. And project managers go to a great deal of trouble to avoid scope creep because it's something that can kind of crawl into your project and really mess you up because all of a sudden you're doing much more work, or maybe people on your team are doing much more work than they had originally planned for, and maybe the budget's not big enough, maybe the time isn't sufficient. It's a recipe for stress. So, scope creep is a bad thing in project management. And I want to posit that scope creep can be really bad in your caregiving life. And I'm not talking about emergencies. Emergencies happen, and when they happen, it's an emergency, right? That's what defines an emergency, is when everything needs to be set aside, possibly, including things that are important to the caregiver. But I mean, if God forbid you're taking a family member to the hospital, you're not going to be concerned about your hair appointment or your gym session or whatever. It's an emergency. I'm not talking about emergencies, I'm talking about scope creep, when people just need a little bit more and a little bit more. And maybe if you have a family, you might have multiple people suddenly needing more care. And it's perfectly legitimate. I had a situation a few weeks ago. One person had their wisdom teeth out, another person was traveling after not having done this since before the pandemic. Another person had another issue. It was like just a convergence, and everyone was totally valid and justified in needing more care. But it was creep. None of it was an emergency, but all of it was a little more time, a little more effort, a little more focus. And what happens in situations like that is that you're like, well, I was going to go for a run at 9:30, but this person really needs XYZ. And so let's just do that. And oh, it's 11. I was really going to go for a run. And if you're not careful, you're not going to go for the run. Or maybe you're like, I'll just cancel the gym this one time because this person really needs ABC. And the problem is, once you've canceled the gym once to take care of somebody else, you're more likely to do it again. And maybe you won't reschedule it because it's just you're out of your routine. So it's very easy for the things that help nourish the caregiver to be set aside. And as I said, if it's an emergency, that's a whole different story. Everything gets set aside in an emergency. But if it's not an emergency, if it's just a little bit more scope creep, then it becomes super important to hold the line. I wrote a piece about this on my blog and on my Substack. Feel free to check those out if you're watching me via one of the StreamYard things, which is Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I've actually got a cool little banner running along the bottom with my link tree, which will tell you how to find my blog and my Substack and all that fun stuff. But it was kind of cool because I found a picture. It was like a beautiful multicolored rope, and it was like just one strand left. It was really frayed. And sometimes we can feel like that. And if you are a caregiver and if you love caring for people, and it's lovely and it's fulfilling and it's wonderful to do. But if you are a caregiver and you don't make sure that your own needs, your own well being is being supported and taken care of, then you're going to end up feeling like that frayed rope. And if you snap, that's not good for anybody. If you're, if you're the person who takes care of people, and a lot of people take care of children, or they take care of older people, or disabled people, people who really depend on their care. And so it becomes even more important to pay attention to your own self-care if you are the caregiver in this situation, because we just want to give everything to the person or people we're caring for, and that's wonderful and that's loving and that's what we want to do. But you have to take care of yourself, and this might seem to be obvious, but it isn't, especially if you grew up being socialized as a woman. Then you are on this International Women's Day, then you find it really easy to put your own needs aside. That's what was expected of you. That's what good girls do. And then you're going to find yourself, possibly, if you make a habit of this, and it doesn't, whatever it is that nourishes you. For me, it happens to be exercise, especially running outside year round. I have to be out in the fresh air and just with the quiet and my own thoughts and my own things that I'm listening to, and just away from everything. And it's maybe an hour and a half sometimes. It depends where I am in my running apps cycle. But if I don't get that a few times a week, then it's not good for my mental health. I mean, physical health, obviously running, da da da. It's good for you to move your body, but I have to get out and have that time. And if I don't have it, then it's not good for anybody. And so it becomes really important. And like I said, whatever it is that nourishes you, whether it's running, walking, swimming, maybe going for a walk, maybe just having some quiet time with a book and a cup of tea. If that is something that is important to you, to sit and read your book in peace, to drink a cup of tea, to maybe meet with a friend for a little while. If you let go of all of those things because the needs of someone you're caring for have increased, hopefully temporarily, but maybe not, then you have to find some way to get yourself that self-care that you need. And it's not always simple. And then, we get these voices in our head telling us that we're selfish. How can you sit and read a book and drink a cup of tea when this person needs you? Well, there's got to be some kind of respite. And like I said, if it's an emergency, that's one thing. Everything gets set aside. But if it's not an emergency, if the person can wait, if it's possible to build in time for you as the caregiver, you have to make it a priority. And like I said, find ourselves, with these voices telling us that we're being selfish. How can you do this? You need to do, you have to do it. It is not helping the person you're caring for you to burn yourself out. And when you find yourself being burnt out, when you find yourself being resentful, God forbid, of the person you are so lovingly taking care of, then it becomes really, really important. If you have children, get a babysitter. If you're dealing with a disabled or older person or a sick person or a stressed out teenager, you have to find some way to get some time for yourself. And that's what I found out. There was a story in a few weeks ago. This guy, his wife had pancreatic cancer. It was really sad. She was discharged from the hospital to die at home, and then there was no home care. This poor guy was doing it all for his wife, who was dying of pancreatic cancer by himself. And I mean, and he had friends and family and so on. But I mean, that's no way to do it. And finally, he went to the media, and then the RHA was embarrassed, and then they sent somebody. The person showed up 2 days after the person died. It was like, I felt so bad for the home care worker. It wasn't their fault. But apparently this happens to them a lot, that they get sent and they're told that the person has died, and whoever scheduled them didn't know. And it's not because the family didn't tell them. It's because, for whatever reason, information didn't trickle through. But what the point is, this caregiver, this partner, was completely overwhelmed because he had no respite. And he could have done so much better job of making his partner's last days comfortable and loving if he had been able, if there had been respite for him, if there had been people who would, allow him to take time for himself. So I really, that story really struck a chord with me. And like I said, thankfully in my case, it was, none of it was hugely, was, I could say, we're gonna stop right now, whatever we're doing. I will be back. I'm going for my run. I will be back, and then we'll carry on. And I wasn't dealing with an infant or a person who couldn't be left alone. So I'm grateful that I was able to enforce the boundaries for the things that I needed to do. But it's really important, and I just cannot emphasize this enough, that it's really important for us to stop thinking we're being selfish when we take time for ourselves. Because on the contrary, it's not fair to the person you're taking care of if you are resentful, if you are burnt out, if you are exhausted. What quality of care can you give in that situation? It's not the best, they're not getting the best of you. So it's better to, if you can find somebody to give you a respite, if the person can be left alone for a little while. Obviously, if you're dealing with young children, that's not possible. And sometimes with people who need care, it's not possible. But then there needs to be some sort of arrangement, some sort of respite, because otherwise you're just going to crack and break. And even if you don't, you're not going to give the best care that this person is entitled to. You love this person, you want to give them the best of care. You have to carve out time to nourish yourself. And like I said, even if it's just a romance novel and a cup of tea, that can rejuvenate you sufficiently. If that's what feeds your soul. Like I said, for myself, I have to get out in the fresh air, at least for a little while, hopefully for a run, but even if it's just for a walk. It's really important to take care of yourself. So that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. And thank you for watching. And I would love it if you would drop a comment and let me know what you think of it. And if you look wherever you're seeing this in any of my many platforms and social media where I hang out, and I am grateful to all the people on those platforms, because I love people, and I love my beautiful people who follow me, who watch me, who message me, who comment on what I do. I really appreciate every single one of you. And so wherever you're watching this, there should be a link in my bio somewhere. I said in the StreamYard, it's going along the bottom of the screen, but it's not the simplest link. I should probably get some sort of alias for it to make it easier to type if you're just watching it on the screen. But if you go into my bio, wherever you're watching this, you should be able to find my link tree a link there that shows you all of my other platforms, all of my, where you can find my Substack, where you can find my blog, where you can find my TikTok, if that's what you're into. Why not? And oh, hi, Joanne. Nice to see you. And yeah, so just to wrap up here, I just wanted to emphasize the huge importance of holding the line on self care if you are a caregiver for someone, because if you don't take care of yourself, you will not be able to give the best of care to the person you're caring for. So, have a great evening. Remember, I love you. I'll be back in this space, all of these spaces, so many spaces. Next Wednesday, I think 7 o'clock is actually a better time than 7:30. So that I think I did it tonight because I actually have another call at 7:30. But I think I'm going to stick with 7 o'clock because I think it's a better time. So you have a great evening or a great day wherever you might be in the world. Remember, I love you, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye bye. See if I can turn off all these things and